Okay.
It's bad, yeah. Oh, I should hook up. Do I need to hook up? I don't even think I need to. Oh, I'm not really good at this.
No,
It's
still
not.
be facing that so that.
But there's all this that has to be done.
So you might have to shift around. this way.
Well, and some of them.
Okay, 7 o'clock.
No,
Yes.
I'm-
69, so they'll go off.
well, who's Bellman on? My Apple time is slower than your Apple
Uh-oh.
time. Just saying. But we can start because Beth said we should start. I don't want to
It's at 7 o'clock
not
here.
do what Beth says that I should do.
I don't trust it. Okay, never mind. Forget I said anything.
No, I can't.
Now you're
Now I'm
dwelling
feeling
on it.
compelled. I mean, I have
It says
5 more
7:05.
minutes of,
This is the
I have
longest
5 minutes. I have 5 more minutes of power.
Better to.
How do I use it?
That's okay. I
It's a late
understand.
meeting.
It's just 7
Okay,
o'clock.
let's do this.
Okay.
Because
Now.
some of our clocks now say it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
So let's start. I'd like to welcome everybody. This is the City of Ellensburg City Council meeting for the evening of Monday, January 3rd, 2022. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member Goodluck.
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Thank you. At this point, normally we would do a roll call, but because this is the first meeting of the year, prior to doing the roll call, we need to administer the oath of office for our council members who have been reelected, Nancy Lowquist and Nancy Goodlow, and our newest council member, Adam Wynn, who was just elected in our past election. So our clerk will administer the oath. Do you want folks up?
Yeah, do you want to do Nancy and Nancy first and then Adam by himself so we could get pictures separately?
Well, I don't think administering the oath is critical to getting pictures separately.
Well, that's what we did with Tristan.
So
that's what I
I
was-
don't know. Let's just get the oath administered and then we'll figure the photo op out.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. You want to, if you want to stand here, then I can get you on the mic.
Yeah.
Okay, and you'll raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Nancy Lilquist,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
and laws of the United States of America
and laws of the United States of America
and the state of Washington
and the state of Washington
and the laws and ordinances of the city of Ellensburg,
and the laws and ordinances of the city of Ellensburg,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
perform the duties of the office of city council member
perform the duties of the office of city council member
for the city of Ellensburg, Washington,
for the city of Ellensburg, Washington,
according to the law and the best of my ability.
according to law and the best of my ability.
Thank you, Deb. You're welcome. You want to keep it? Okay, that's fine.
She needs the guidance.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was smiling.
That's good. We'll start off his tenure by embarrassing him with his mother in a picture. Welcome, everybody, and thank you. Okay, now I think, since we're already called to order, we could go and do a roll call.
Elliot,
Here.
Goodlow,
Here.
Lilquist,
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Tab,
Here.
Win.
Here.
Thank you. Our next order of business is to elect a new mayor and a mayor pro tem. I think we would do nominations.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I had a little guidance for council. So
Okay, thank you.
as soon as you open up nominations, any nomination come from a council member to the floor. Obviously, you can either nominate yourself or someone else. A nomination does not need a second. And the nominated person, of course, can make some sort of statement if they choose. The member can also decline the nomination. And then if there's no further nominations, Mr. Mayor, you can then close the nominations. In terms of election, we have traditionally done it by a written ballot, which is then given back to the city clerk, who then reads and tallies the votes. My suggestion would be if there's at least 2 or more nominations, that you use a written ballot. If there's only one, you may choose to go by a voice vote. If you want to do that, I would suggest that come upon motion of a council member with a second and a vote for the voice vote itself. I think that's about it, unless you have any questions about the process.
Any questions? Okay, the floor is now open for nominations for the position of mayor for the city council in the city.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to nominate Nancy Lilquist for the mayor position.
And you said we do not need a second?
That's correct.
So we have a nomination for Nancy Lilquist to serve as mayor. Any further nominations? Hearing none, then we would close nominations for the position of mayor. I'd entertain a motion to elect Nancy Lilquist mayor by acclamation.
So moved.
Second.
We have motion second to elect Nancy Lilquist as mayor by acclamation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. So then I need to go away.
You can go, well, you got to stay up there.
You're
but
not
you can-
going away.
You gotta move to David's seat and David moves over and Nancy moves over.
Oh, it's okay. Oh, there he goes, right off the end. I guess I'm. Thank you so much. We do that, I'm dangerous with those things. You just want to put you down here. So you know yours. That chair is really adjusted, so. maybe I should keep it. I don't know.
Thank you to the council, and I will, I will do my best to fulfill this role, as well as Mayor Tab has. I think he's elevated the position of mayor in his tenure to be much more than the person who runs the meetings, and in terms of community engagement and legislative liaisonship and that sort of thing. And so I just want to thank Mayor Tab for his service and how he led the community through a very difficult couple of years.
Thank you.
So our next order of business is to elect a mayor pro tem. Floor is open for nominations.
So I'd nominate Nancy Goodlow. Do you want to do that again?
So there's been a nomination for Nancy Goodlow. Is there any other nominations? So do we need to close nominations and
You can entertain a vote by acclamation.
yeah, so should can I get a motion to entertain the vote by acclamation?
So moved.
Second,
Motion and second to elect Nancy Goodloe as Mayor Pro Tem by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
I too will vote aye. That motion carries.
This could be dangerous, you know.
Nancy and Nancy, the Nancy team. Okay. There are no proclamations tonight, nor awards of recognition. So we are at approval of the agenda.
Approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor, excuse me. We do have a need to remove one of the items from the agenda, which would be item 6A. Peggy Marash is not able to be with us tonight, and that'll have to be rescheduled. So we would request that that item be moved.
Motion to remove item 6A from the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to amend the agenda to remove item 6A. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Motion, vote on the main motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Mayor, move to approve the amended agenda.
Second,
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we got a motion before. or not.
Get a
We
second.
didn't, okay. So there's a motion and second to approve the amended agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. That motion carries.
Madam Mayor, I move consent agenda.
second,
Motion and second for the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. That motion carries. There's no proposed. So we are at item 6B, Board and Commission applications. We have one applicant. Okay. Torino Lozano. Would you like to, there you're unmuted. Can you?
Yes,
speak?
can you guys hear me? Okay. Hello, my name is Taurino Lozano, and I'm the applicant for the DEI Commission. Is there anything else you guys?
Do you want to just tell us why you want to be serve on this commission and maybe a little bit about yourself?
All right, so like I said, my name is Taurino Lozano. Currently, I'm a full-time student at CWU. I'm studying to be an elementary teacher with a minor in special education. Prior to, I've been here for 6 years in Ellensburg, and mainly I was working at the early Head Start program here in town. Now that I'm just a full-time student, I wanted to be involved in the city, and I thought, you know, being part of a group that promotes diversity, equity, and inclusivity is a great start for me to be more involved. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Trina?
I have a question. Is it Taurino? Is that?
Yes, that was really good.
Okay, good. I'm Nancy Goodlaw. I'm the chair of the commission. Could you speak a little bit about a network? One of the things that we rely a lot on are the networks that our commission members have in place to reach out and get involvement and get feedback and get involved in the various activities. Could you talk a little bit about the network that you could bring to the table?
So part of the network that I have worked with different organizations in our community. I was a home visitor for the Early Head Start program, which provides in-service services to lower income families. And a big part of that was to find them resources in order to improve home life, mental health. So I work with all sorts of different organizations here in town. And I was semi-good at it, I think. I mean, I did it for almost 6 years. So I think that's something I would bring, that I can I know where to search for these resources. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thanks for being here tonight. And our normal process is that we would introduce you tonight and then consider appointment at our next meeting. We've kind of been in the transition time where we're just tonight adopting new policies about our boards and commissions. And one of the, just for the council, one of the recommendations from the Board and Commission Subcommittee was to request that applicants attend one meeting prior to appointment, and that applicants could be interviewed by the council liaison and the appointed commission staff, who would then make recommendations to the council. And we did not put this in our rules that we're considering, but we could adopt this as a practice, starting with Mr. Lozano. What are your thoughts?
I like the idea of the practice that is being proposed. I'd love to have him come to a meeting. Our next meeting is next Tuesday. Torino.
At what time?
At 3 o'clock.
Okay, yeah, I can attend.
3 o'clock. I'll have our staff liaison get in touch with you. We will need your email address. Perhaps you could. Is it on
Lori
there?
has it.
Is it on there? Heidi's got it. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
I like the idea of persons coming to the meeting, at least one meeting, and I like the idea of an interview, although it could prolong the process.
Mhm.
So if I may, I think if you're able to make the meeting, that's great. We have not adopted the ordinance.
No, and this is not in the ordinance.
So it was a recommendation.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a little bit uncomfortable with instituting that unless we add it to the ordinance or put it down in writing. But it's irrespective of this process, if we can make the meeting.
Yeah, I think the idea is great. I'm not arguing the idea. I would hate to see a qualified applicant not considered.
Mhm.
It's-
So-
it's
Let's, perhaps at our next meeting, we can, well, or when we discuss the board and commission ordinance, we can have the discussion of whether we want to include this in the ordinance or adopt it as a practice or whatever.
No, I'd be comfortable with that.
So we're not necessarily holding this applicant to that process, but it'd be great if.
I think that would always be encouraged for any applicant to attend a meeting for a board or commission that they're considering serving on.
Okay. Thank you again for coming, Torino.
Oh, thank you, guys.
So now is citizen comment on non-agenda issues. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to an item that is not on our agenda? And you would have 3 minutes. And cautioned not to make comments of a personal, impertinent, or derogatory nature. Was there anyone signed up? Is there anyone on the, I don't have.
I don't see anybody with a raised hand,
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor. Oh, now I do.
Oh,
Lee Bates.
Okay. Mr. Bates?
Hi, good evening. I'm Lee Bates, and I reside at 1802 North Bluegrass Lane. And first of all, congratulations, Mayor Lilquist.
Thank you.
And I'm here tonight actually to commend the city and say I got a wonderful Christmas present from the city, probably one of the best presents I've received in a long time. I learned that the city will be installing an RRFB, or rectangular rapid flashing beacon light, at the crossing of Cora, where the P2C trail goes from one side to the other crossing Cora. It was a much needed safety mechanism. And I'm thrilled, truly thrilled for our community, because it's been needed for several months, and the city has found that need and agreed with it, and it's going to be coming to fruition, I believe, this spring. So something good happening in 2022. And I also want to call out Derek Mayo, who works with the city, and he's been integral in helping us come along. And I appreciate his competency, his intelligence, and his really understanding of the safety issues that I know the council has been hearing a lot about in many forms, both written and in person and at meetings. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have Teresa Plu with her hand raised.
Ms. Plu?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Teresa Plu, 140 Woodhouse Loop, Ellensburg, Washington. And I had heard, somebody had told me that there was a consideration of closing the Pearl Street next to Unity Park and making it into a walkway instead, so there wouldn't be any parking. And I drove through there to see how many parking spots there were. There were over 40 of them. I do business with 2 businesses there. And I spoke to one of the business owners, and they said that, well, they would probably be forced, because their clientele being senior citizens, a lot of them, to be forced to leave that area. And I was also thinking of the pet store, and so many seniors go down there and use that and get food for their animals. They wouldn't be wanting to carry dog food. Well, the parking, you'd probably get kicked out about 3 blocks, I figure, with that many parking spots and such demand. So I guess I would, and also that business owner didn't seem to know anything about it. He was surprised that he hadn't heard anything. He asked me to try to find out more. I thought maybe I'd go down to the, I didn't know if I should come to you or to the downtown association and find out why the business owners along that street have not been contacted or notified yet for their input. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Is our survey still up?
I believe we took the survey down, but we do have some information out there, and we can certainly contact Ms. Plume.
Thank you. The next item is, well, is there any more citizens online?
I don't see any more hands raised, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is 8A, public hearing on the proposed expansion of the residential targeted area for multifamily housing to the central commercial 2 zone.
It's under the script is under just to your left.
Okay, so public hearing, I get to read a script. The purpose of this legislative hearing is for the city council to consider first reading of an ordinance to which would expand the residential target area for the multifamily property tax exemption to include the Central Commercial 2 zone. The public hearing is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. I will first recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by any persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you are connected by a telephone only. And wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you're invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. So before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented? Bailey.
I do have a staff report, Madam Mayor, members of council, Jamie Ailing with Community Development Department. As you noted, what you have before you tonight is the public hearing for council to consider amending expanding the residential targeted area and expanding the multifamily tax exemption program by doing so. The process to do so is to hold this public hearing and then move forward on amending the ordinance to include the CC2 zone. Currently, it only includes the CC zone. In 2007, City Council adopted the initial ordinance creating the MFTE program. And in 2014, Council amended the ordinance to update it with with what was allowed in the RCW to allow an 8-year and a 12-year exemption. And now we're asking to expand it and amend the ordinance again, just to expand where this exemption will be offered in a larger geographical area within the city. In order to qualify for this MFTE expansion, the RCW states that there must be a few things that the area must consider. It must be within an urban center. The area must lack sufficient desirable and convenient residential housing. And in the providing of the convenient residential housing in the area, it will insist in achieving one or more stated purposes of the chapter. Through the city has conducted a housing needs assessment through the Affordable Housing Commission, and staff believes that sufficient data has been collected and compiled to demonstrate the criteria of the RCW have been met. Staff provided a draft of the ordinance for first reading, which will accomplish expansion of the MFTE and adds some definitions that were changed based on the recent legislative session as well, and would effectively expand the MFTE. So with that, staff would recommend that you go forward with the public hearing, expand the residential targeted area, and then consider and entertain the ordinance to amend the current ordinance in chapter 2.3. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Thank you. But first, the floor is open to testimony from the public. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone in the audience here who would like to speak on the matter? Seeing none, is there any virtual hands raised?
There are no virtual hands raised, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Does staff have anything to add?
I have nothing further.
Okay. Council, do you have questions for the staff or public? Okay, seeing none. The public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter.
Madam Mayor, I move first reading of ordinance 4885.
Second.
Motion and second for first reading of ordinance 4885, amending chapter 2.30, expanding the existing residential targeted area to include the CC2 zone and effectively expanding the MFTE program. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to recognize the work that Jamie has done to get this in front of the Affordable Housing Commission, and then also like to commend the commission for recognizing the value of this quickly and move that forward to council so that we could take this step. I do think it's an important piece in our kind of toolbox ultimately for the creation of affordable housing. So actually just housing. It's not just affordable housing. So I want to, again, recognize the work that Jamie did to get it in front of us, but also to get it to the Affordable Housing Commission and the discussion and commitment that the Affordable Housing Commission has shown to bring this forward.
Okay. Anyone else? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, relating to Chapter 2.30 multifamily tax incentives, expanding the residential targeted area and amending sections 2.30.1010, 2.030.15, 2.30.020, 2.30.040, 2.30.050, and 2.30.060 of the Ellensburg City Code.
Thank you. Next item is item 9A, second reading and adoption of ordinance 4883 and 4884 to amend the city code provisions relating to city commissions, boards, and committees and the hearing examiner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Terry Weiner, City Attorney. Before you tonight for second reading, you have actually two ordinances that are somewhat related. Ordinance 4883 and 4884. These ordinances arose out of initially the study of the City Council Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Boards and Commissions. It went through the recommendations before council back in July, and then a draft of the ordinance was brought to you November 1st of last year. There were some requested changes for the draft ordinance, and those changes were incorporated then into an ordinance that was brought to you for first reading at your December 20th, 2021 meeting. And as a result of that, first reading was held on that night. As you're aware from the previous reviews of the draft and the first reading ordinance, the Boards Commission ordinance will substantially revise how boards and commissions are selected, transferring that from the mayor to the council as a whole. In addition, there are provisions in there related to how vacancies and removal are conducted, the organization of boards, commissions, and basically providing sort of an umbrella of consistency that was lacking for each of the individually enabling ordinances of the boards and commissions. In addition to that, we were also eliminating a couple of boards that are no longer active or needed. That includes the Building Code Board of Appeals and a couple of other boards that have been outdated or haven't had any membership or responsibilities for several years. The result of that, though, eliminating those boards required that we amend the chapter 1.70A governing the hearing examiner to add some additional responsibilities under that ordinance, and also to clean that one up as well. The result of that is the two ordinances you have before you now for second reading and adoption. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the city attorney?
Madam Mayor, I move second reading and adoption of ordinance 4883.
Second.
Motion and second for second reading and adoption of ordinance 4883. Is there further discussion?
I have a question. Madam City Manager, did we make that change that you and I discussed
Yes, we did. And so Terry, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it came to my attention today that Councilmember Goodloe was requesting a change. If you give me 1 second here, to the ordinance section 37, which relates to the DEI Commission. The change would be that in essence, there's 2 sections that relate to membership on page 18 of the ordinance. And I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda.
26.
70?
Page 70, thank you.
Yes.
That's the creation and purpose, and it talks about the DEI Commission consisting of 7 members. On the next page, under section 1.88.020, under C, it states a city council member shall be appointed to the commission as chairperson who is non-voting except in the case of a tie. Councilmember Goodloe was requesting that it would be more consistent to, in essence, move that subsection C under 1.88.020 into the paragraph on the previous page under 1.88.010. Certainly it makes sense. I haven't done it because it's already gone through first reading, so it would take a motion to amend, and so I leave that up to council.
I thought the statement that the commission included 7 members was a little misleading because it's really 6 members plus a non-voting council representative. And so I thought it would be helpful to clarify that. It could be a little misleading.
It isn't, to me though, it isn't clear when you put those 2 sentences together that it's not 7 plus 1.
If I could interject, I sort of anticipating that the amendment proposal is going to come up. So I have drafted substitute language, and I'll just read it to you verbatim, leaving out the strikeout portion that's already there. There is created a diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI commission consisting of 7 members, one of whom shall be a city council member serving as chairperson and is a non-voting member except in the case of a tie. I think that may clarify your concern, Councilmember.
It does.
Madam Mayor, I would move to amend the ordinance to include the language change in 188.010.
Second.
Motion and second to amend the ordinance to substitute the language just read by the city attorney into section 1.88.010.
And deleting C in 1.88.020.
And deleting C if the motion maker. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I too will vote aye. There,
So, yeah, so going back to Rich's observation, and I think our discomfort with articulating a practice that's not that we haven't fully discussed.
great. So I guess I would ask the attorney, is it appropriate to put into the ordinance that an applicant attend the meeting before they're appointed, and the practice of interviewing who might interview prior to?
Madam Mayor, that's a policy issue, and if council desires to do that, it can certainly be done. If that is the desire of council and that amendment is voted in, I would really recommend that this be brought back for a second reading at the next meeting, because we're adding a substantive provision to the ordinance that doesn't appear in it currently.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to have a conversation about making that sort of change. I think again, it's kind of like the last meeting. We can accomplish what you're talking about without prescriptively dictating another, sort of layer of steps and another layer in the process.
Yeah,
So
and
we're gonna make that.
I think what might have been anticipated here, although it doesn't, so it does say, so the applicant will be interviewed by council liaison and the appointed commission staff, who in turn would make the recommendation prior to the introduction at the council meeting. I was thinking it might be as a substitute for having to come and appear before the full council, to be interviewed by a subcommittee of the commission itself. But I agree, we need to have that conversation. So do you want to move forward with adoption of this ordinance tonight? There is a motion on the table.
I would support moving forward and tabling the discussion on the amendment until a later date. Or the additional language provision.
Yeah, if that's what we're gonna do, I would agree, because I want to have a substantive conversation about this, because I think there's a better way to do it, so.
Okay. So we have a motion for second reading and adoption of ordinance 4883 as amended. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Oh, that would be a roll call
Be a
vote.
roll call, right? Sorry.
Elliott,
Yes.
Goodloe,
Yes.
Lilquist,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
Tab,
Yes.
Win.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
You still have the second ordinance as well.
Yeah, we need to read it, right?
I need to read this. Yep,
You
that's
need to-
okay. No
you need to
worries, no
affirm.
worries.
Oh.
And
I'm sorry. Motion passes.
okay. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to boards and commissions, repealing chapter 1.12 entitled Advisory Commissions Appointment and adopting a new chapter 1.12 entitled Commissions, Boards and Committees, repealing and amending chapters of the Ellensburg City Code as listed in the ordinance.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move second reading adoption of ordinance 4884.
Second.
Motion and second to conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4884 related to the hearings examiner. Is any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Sorry.
That's okay. Elliott,
Yes.
Goodloe,
Yes.
Lilquist,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
Tab,
Yes.
Win.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to hearing examiners and adding new sections 1.70A, 3.320, and 1.70A, 340, and amending sections 1.70A, 0.200, 4.34.020, and 9.100.140 of the Ellensburg City Code.
Thank you. Our next item is to consider a resolution to temporarily amend utility account collections process resolution for the past due utility accounts.
Help me share my screen again.
Can't have Terry, you get Jim. Almost as good.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, Jerica Pasco, Finance Director for the City of Ellensburg. Before you is a resolution to temporarily amend our utility accounts collection process for our past due utility accounts. Our 30-day past due account balances have increased from under 100,000 to almost $1 million and by approximately 1,000 counts since March of 2019. I have a few short slides here to show you as to where we're at and how we got here, and would be happy to answer questions at the end if you have them. So beginning on the first one, you can see the gradual increase in the total past due amounts in dollars, as well as the total number of accounts past due, beginning and with COVID in March of 2019, we had under 100,000 and about 720 past due utility accounts. Now reaching November, the end of November 2021, we now have around 868,000 in past due utility accounts. And these are 30 days or more past due and around 1,700 accounts. At the end of November, approximately a quarter of those balances are commercial, the remaining residential. And about approximately 1,000 of those accounts are active utility accounts and the remaining are inactive or have moved out. So how did we get here and where are we headed? So the increase in the outstanding receivables began with COVID and with the governor's proclamation, which on March 18th of 2020 imposed mandatory prohibitions on investor-owned utilities and prohibited disconnects for non-payment, as well as prohibited refusal to reconnect for non-payment and the charging of fees or reconnection fees. At that time, we had approximately 792 delinquent accounts totaling around $148,000. And then on April 17th of 2020, the governor issued proclamation 20-23.5, which extended the order to apply to all local government public utility service providers retroactively back until March 23rd of 2020, at which time we had around 941 delinquent accounts and totaling around 235,000. So then on May 22nd of 2020, the city issued an emergency management order, which provided for repayment plan within 60 days of the rescission of the governor's order, allowing for a 6-month repayment period, at which time we had around 1,000 delinquent accounts totaling $331. So the governor's utility moratorium ended on September 30th, where we had around 1,561 delinquent accounts totaling almost 800,000. So our 60-day repayment option then ended on November 30th of 2021. And on that date, we had close to 1,700 delinquent accounts or 860,000 in 30-day or more past dues. So if we were to follow the city code and where we're headed, we did mail out late notices. Were mailed out then again beginning on December 1st. However, we didn't post those late fees at those times. The system automatically charges the late fees when the late notices are printed, but we haven't posted that. And if we were following code, most customers would have received a disconnection notice by December 9th, and some could have been disconnected as early as December 16th, which we have not disconnected any customers for non-payment at this time. So what have we done as the city? So throughout the pandemic, the finance staff has made contact or attempted to make contact with all past due utility customers at a variety of times and in multiple ways. We've made phone calls to past due customers to see if they could make a payment. And if not, we've let them know about the utility payment assistance available. If we had an email on account, staff then attempted to contact the customers by email if they were unable to reach them by phone. Staff mailed multiple notices to customers with past due balances, informing them of the utility assistance through Hope Source and discounted rates available to low-income senior and disabled citizens. And each mailing notification explained the repayment agreement process that would occur after the governor's proclamation expired. So then once the governor's proclamation expired, we mailed a repayment agreement to all customers with past due balances on October 1st. Also during November of 2021, a message was printed on all the utility bills to let all customers know that as of November 30th, the city's normal collection process would resume according to Chapter 2.12 of the Ellensburg City Code, unless the customer had a signed repayment agreement on file with us. And I should mention too, as of November 30th, when the repayment agreement option ended, we had only received around 52 utility repayment agreements out of the 1,700 customers that had been notified. As of Monday, we've only received about 75 total. So what happens if we follow code and what happens if we disconnect? So Chapter 2.12.170 of the city code is for charges for reconnection. Where's my notes? Well, in order for a utility service to be disconnected due to delinquency or non-payment, in order to reconnect the utility, they must make all delinquent utility accounts paid in full. And we will also require a deposit if we don't already have one on file, which the amount is dependent on the number of utilities they have. They must also pay the reconnection fee in full before they can be reconnected, which, as you can see below, the hourly rates for the reconnection fee. In the winter, we try not to disconnect for electric. So those disconnects would be water disconnects if they have a water utility, but you're still looking at around $22 or $23 for an hour for the water, and after hours rates would be around $100 an hour. So can we avoid those winter disconnects, and where do we go through now? We have met with the Public Works Utility Director, the city manager, and the city attorney, and the utility supervisor on multiple occasions, and there is no easy answer for this. We've talked through all the situations and the possible options, and so what we have before you is a resolution. This is the end of the arrow here is where we're at in the process. So in the resolution, we are recommending that we waive those collection or that we waive the late fees through January of 2022 and send those past due balances to collection instead of disconnection. So in summary, staff is recommending to council to waive the late fees during December of 2021 and January of 2022 for all utility customers with past due balances. And then for utility customers who still have arrears from September 30th, when the governor's moratorium ended, to allow their entire past due account balance on December 31st to be referred to a collection agency on February 7th, which would mean after this meeting, sometime this week, we would send out a 30-day collection notice to them. So they would have 30 days to make a payment arrangement with us or make a payment or contact Hope Source or somebody for assistance before we sent them to collection. And then approximately February 7th, with the exception of the accounts that have a signed or approved repayment agreement from December 31st or who have made contact with Hope Source or us, we would send them to collection, therefore avoiding the disconnection of utilities for the non-payment during winter. So questions?
Yeah, just a rough idea, and I'm in no way, shape, or form, opposed to what you recommended here, but roughly what are the collection fees?
The collection fees are 29%.
29%?
Yes.
That's
And
significantly
those are
less.
charged directly by the collection agency merchant's credit to the customer.
That's way less than I'm used to, so it's awesome. Okay.
And as of, so I probably should mention too, here in our current code, in our process, it's the current utility customers that are delinquent that we normally disconnect. The past utility customers that have moved out, normally they would have already gone to collection. And so of those around approximately 1,700 delinquent accounts that we have right now, around 1,000 of them are active customers. The remaining 600 or so are inactive and have already moved out and not responded. So those would still get the 30-day notice and be sent to collection as well.
So if I may, so the 1,000 that are left are still on our books and are still using our utilities.
Correct.
So they go to collections, but they haven't made a payment.
Correct. They will have soon have their January and February and those bills to continue to pay on in order to keep service on, but their past will go to collection and they'll be responsible for paying the collection agency, which pays us.
Right. No, I understand that part. So I'm trying to get to the disconnect piece.
Okay.
Okay. So, so if the people that are currently in arrears, but do not have a repayment schedule, there's about 1,000 of those because it
Yes.
sounded like we had a very small number.
Mhm.
So they would continue to potentially accrue. At what point then would we envision disconnecting those folks
So if they get up to 2 months behind on their current ones after their balances through December 31st have been sent to collection, and then they don't pay their January and February bills, then at that point they would be sent disconnect notices and disconnected within 7 days after receiving their door tag.
So one other question. It seemed to me when you were talking about the numbers that we were at 1,000, that was at 300 and some $1,000, and then we went to 1,700, which leapt to wherever we are, 680,000.
860,000.
860,000. So part of are there certain users either in the business community or in the private sector that are larger? At no time in this conversation have we had an understanding of either what the average bill looks like or the median.
So in arrears, right now, as of the last month, so residential customers, which account for about 1,000 of those, approximately half of those, their balances are $225 or less. A lot of those are going to be ones that maybe moved out partway through the process. We do have up to, around 140 customers, residential customers that owe over $1,000. Then for our commercial accounts, half of those commercial accounts, which are around 100, half of those owe less than 500. We do have one commercial account that owes in excess of 20,000. They've already contacted us though and have applied for a grant loan that they're going to make payment arrangements on.
Do we have information to indicate how many of the commercial accounts are active versus those who maybe businesses have folded or shut
You know
down?
what? I do not have a separation between which ones of the commercial accounts. I just have total active versus inactive, not a breakdown between
But
residents.
general impression is these are active businesses
Yeah.
for the most part.
Madam Mayor, I move resolution 2022-1.
Second.
Motion and second to adopt resolution 2022-1.
I just would like to say that I appreciate, the city has been trying to navigate. We run our utilities as businesses, and I'm sure there are people who have made extraordinary efforts to pay, even though it's very difficult. And I'm sure that there are people on the other end of the spectrum who may have potentially taken advantage of the circumstances. And we need to make utilities whole, ratepayers whole to the extent that we can. And I think that the city has been trying to meet the community, in a reasonable place the whole way through the process. And I appreciate the effort.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
If you will vote aye, that motion opposed, that motion carries. There's nothing to read. So we are moving on to item 11A, the city's 2022 legislative priorities.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. Heidi Barron, Sternaway, City Manager. You have before you a draft of some proposed legislative priorities. This item was on your December 20th study session agenda, and we're not able to get to it due to time. So we moved forward and made some adjustments. I actually made some adjustments just today on the dais. You'll have some edits. This essentially is the first time the city has, as far as we know, adopted legislative priorities. As you know, the things that happen in the world around us impact the city, and sometimes we need to keep those items on the horizon as we head into especially a new legislative session. And having councils come and voice these priorities match your strategic vision and your priorities. We know there are some issues out there and we tried to summarize those. These really create some talking points when we talk to our local legislators. And so it's an opportunity for our first draft of these. I'm sure things will shift as we move forward. But our recommendation is to adopt a set of strategic priorities to continue to advocate for things that are important, policies that are important to our community. So again, you have a revised version on the dais at this point. We actually removed some of the detail, especially of the public safety legislation, to try to keep it to a really high level and to keep the very simple talking points. So our recommendation would be if there are adjustments to make, but that council would actually take a formal action to adopt these, not through resolution or ordinance, but just adopt these as priorities.
Council, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I'll move that we adopt the amend, are we calling them amended? How we want to do it, the ones that are on the dais.
Second.
Motion and second to adopt the city's proposed 2022 legislative priorities, the version that is on our desk tonight.
If I may, I could just speak to that. Part of the reason that there's a lot of red and line out is my mine. I feel that there were a number of both policy and philosophical issues that I felt were articulated in those bullets that were, from my perspective anyway, I was not prepared to incorporate as a priority for us legislatively. I feel like those are real, the issues that are identified are issues that the chief has spoken to, but I feel like we should understand the impact within our community of these more clearly. And I think we need to understand language that would be incorporated in there for the implication. But I do think that the language that remains, perhaps the only quibble I would have was, again, I'm not sure taking away judicial decision-making is, I get that, but releasing inmates back into communities often without support or supervision. I'm not clear that, I don't know what that means. And I'm not clear about the impact that has on this community. I also know, and as we identified at the last council meeting of the year, that the legislature will be taking up police reform. And so from my perspective, the language that we're incorporating in this statement reflects the messages that we've been giving to AWC, that we've been giving to our legislative, to our legislators about, don't fundamentally provide us the opportunity and the tools to provide community policing in a way that reflects the culture of both our police department and our community. And recognize that we are committed to supporting the police department. And our best means of doing so is retaining our ability to have the dialogue with our community and our police department.
Yeah, and so I think raises an issue, and maybe if you would explain how you envision this being utilized as we move forward.
Absolutely. So this is a starting place. As you know, policy moves fairly quickly amongst the legislature, and this is a short session this year. Our goal would be to take some of these talking points and create a one sheet. And these are really the talking points that we would bring to our state representatives and state senators in one-on-one meetings with them, just to continue to make sure that Ellensburg's interests are being heard, from voices within our community. And it's really helpful to have a set of adopted priorities in order to speak from.
So this 3 pages is going to get condensed before we handed it to anyone for communication, and then we would have talking points that
We need both shortened elevator. Bill Hinkle taught me when I was doing more legislative work that anything over 5 slides on the PowerPoint deck is wasted on the legislature.
So there is
How to respond to that.
probably best left unresponded to. We have a motion on the floor to adopt the legislative priorities. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Just as we're shuffling, I would like to thank the city manager for the work, both to reflect the strategic initiatives, but also to push us in that direction where we ultimately have these as a framing and talking points.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We are at the manager's report.
Okay, excellent. So a couple of items to report. As you recognize outside, it is snowing and we went into full snow removal. And just a reminder that that's a very significant expense to the tune of about $25,000 per day for full on snow removal. So our staff take that very seriously. And we try to adjust our operations too for maximum efficiency. So you'll note that about midnight tonight, the downtown will be plowed and they'll be working on snow removal efforts there when cars are not out. And so please pay attention. We have lots of details on the website for parking restrictions and just be a good neighbor, help each other out and shovel the walks. And so just a good winter reminder that it's full on winter right now. Couple other items I would add to my report. So first of all, appreciate our study session schedule for the second meeting of each month. We're starting an hour early at 6 p.m. Wanted to check and just at least get a straw poll on a couple of items. And so at our next study session, which is Tuesday the 18th, because Monday is a holiday, we actually have our very own our Deputy Chief, Rich Elliott, is going to provide some emergency management training for elected officials. And so he promised me he can keep that to 50 minutes. 45 minutes, excellent. Actually, we'd like to invite other elected officials, so school board members, folks from the other fire districts, county commissioners, hospital districts, and just to welcome folks to join us remotely or in person. And just wanted to make sure that was okay with council, and that's on our schedule. Okay, I see heads shaking. So we'll move forward with that. And there are two other items that are coming before potentially the UAC, the Utility Advisory Committee. One is a broadband update, and we have limited hours for our consultant, and wondering if council is interested in doing like a joint presentation for on the broadband study that should be coming back probably in February. We could invite the UAC to attend with council and do that at a study session, or council could actually attend the UAC, which is in the late afternoon at about 4 o'clock. So just interest in doing something jointly for that item. I see heads shaking.
Just a question. That would be a follow-up to the presentation that we had. And it was 2 or 3
Correct.
meetings.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
so I think that would be great. I think having a joint meeting to move it forward, to respect the consultant's time, but also to have a conversation with the UAC with council at the same time would be
Excellent.
expeditious.
Okay, we'll work on coordinating that. And then the final
Do
was
you guys
another
have
item.
Preference council meeting or UAC meeting? The
UAC is
UAC
at 3:30 on Thursday.
Thursday at 3:30.
We could
Some people work
coordinate
during the
off
day, but
off scene and do a schedule poll too to
Okay.
see if folks could
Comprehensive.
attend.
Our agenda is full.
Yeah,
in that
so
month.
yeah, we're looking the February kind of schedule. The other item is we have the Climate Commitment Act is a new act that was passed this last year. It has some pretty significant impacts, and we actually have somebody from the Department of Ecology that is able to do an update on the act. They're still in the rulemaking process. But with our utilities and looking forward, it's important for us to keep this on our radar. So the other question was, is council interested in doing a joint, we could do that joint meeting, perhaps at the same meeting, or again, doing a joint study session to review the Climate Commitment Act. The other option is to have the UAC do a deep dive and do a summary presentation here.
It seems like an awful lot to cram into.
Yeah, I don't
one
think we want
session.
to. Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't think we'd want to do it in one session, but I'm not sure.
So the January 20th is the next UAC meeting that we could potentially, and I'm not sure the availability of the DOE person, but if they were available at that time, that would be my, I would offer that, and then the council could attend that, or if we could tape it and make it available as well for council to watch.
Would it also be possible for the council liaison to present, have some time on a subsequent council agenda to present a synopsis of what was presented at that meeting?
Yes, or we could ask staff to.
Someone?
Yes, absolutely.
Because we have two members on the.
We do, yeah, and yeah, it's a complicated.
So
matter.
DOE
Yes, we could
would
do a
be, I
summary.
mean, I tried to read that, something, whatever, and I think it was supposed to be a synopsis, and it was ridiculous.
I've attended about 3 webinars for the rulemaking.
It's
And so,
convoluted. So the thought is that if DOE, it would be informational.
yes,
That's, okay. And then if we did it, just if there were more than 3 council members that wanted to attend that meeting, we'd have to post it.
correct.
Right.
So perhaps what we can do is arrange the time with the DOE person and then let council know you can attend if you'd like. If not, we'll provide the synopsis at a later.
It's just,
So,
if we get 4, we're,
Yeah.
so there are
we'll just have
two
to-
already, right? With,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so there's really room for just one more.
One more.
Yeah, okay.
So-
My only.
But it's not that hard to post as a joint.
Well, right,
meeting.
right. My thought was also that I don't know what the availability of the DOE person is. It may be that whether they're moving forward with rulemaking or whatever, that maybe there would be some benefit for a second presentation or discussion with the DOE person, with the council after the UAC presentation on the 20th, but maybe we don't need that.
It'd be nice to all hear the same thing. But,
Well, I'm thinking one conversation may build on the other.
it might, as things progress, there will be changes.
I guess, given the complexity of what we're talking about and the fact that we have to interpret what is said before we actually understand what we have to do, and then have to come up with a plan or options for us to provide direction on how to get there. To me, it makes the most sense to have sort of the subject matter experts distill the information to a point where we have a reasonably clear idea from a policy perspective. What does this mean we have to do, and what are our options? And then I would like to have an interaction, with DOE or something like that, where we may be able to offer the question. I think if we're chasing something that is incredibly complex, and we'll just keep getting deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole from my perspective. I care about this. It's important. I get it. But there's no way I'm going to become a subject matter expert.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll start with the UAC, and I think that's great advice. And nothing further from me. Thank you.
I have a question, if I may, on the reappointment of library board members.
Yes.
I was just curious, we've given our conversations about advertising, and these are reappointments. So I guess my question was, could you elaborate on the process that was used to either solicit new board members, or whether that?
So we did advertise for new board members, and I actually interviewed. So this was an appointment within code that was done by the city manager. And so interviewed 2 other members, and ultimately selected the 2 reappointment, the 2 members for reappointment.
I think that's fine. I just was interested to hear if we're trying to implement the policies that we've discussed. It sounds like we are. So that's very good.
Okay, so council member reports. We'll let Adam warm up a little. We'll start with Councilmember Elliott.
So given that the last few weeks that we didn't have a lot of contact, I just have a couple of requests. As we move into the second meeting in January, there is a very clear overlap on one of the committees and boards that I'm assigned to. The meetings actually overlap, and it's fairly important to be there and to be there at the entire meetings, and that's the EBDA or Centrifuge and the Parks Commission. So I'm going to need relief for one of those two. I have a preference, but we'll talk about that later. In between now and when we make the appointments, there are vacancies with KITCOM and the EMS Council. I'm attending both of those meetings, and so I would like to be considered for appointment for the council moving forward. But in the interim, I'm offering obviously to represent the council at both of those meetings between now and when we actually make those appointments.
So you want someone to volunteer this evening to?
No, I'm
Okay,
just
just the
saying,
interim.
moving forward, that's something that absolutely has to be rectified. But the EMS and the KICOM board meetings will happen before our next meeting. And so I will go and I will represent the city unless somebody has opposition for that. And that's all I got.
Councilmember Goodloe.
Oh, I have no commission or committee reports to make, Madam Mayor, but I do have a couple of requests to present to the council tonight. During the holidays, we have an issue has arisen with the DEI Commission. And I would request appointment of a council subcommittee to work with me to help bring a resolution back to council on how we should move forward on that issue. The second request is I would like to see staff bring back a recommendation for consideration by the council that would lay out a code of conduct for all members of all commissions and boards and committees that are appointed by city council.
How many people did you want for your subcommittee?
Well, I think the standard 3, I just want to be a part of it.
Of course.
If we could get an idea what the nature of the thing is, I don't want to volunteer for something if I'm completely not matched for that.
Has to do with public conduct of one of the DEI Commission members.
Are there volunteers to serve?
I'd be willing to serve on that subcommittee if appropriate.
I will serve if nobody else wants to,
I'll serve.
and I will not.
Okay. So
That's out.
No worries.
David, Adam, and Nancy will make a recommendation regarding the incident from over the break. And does council support asking staff to review the code of conduct for the boards and commissions?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should. I mean, I think it can be a potential slippery slope in terms of what we can manage, what we can control. But I think the idea of a standard is not the worst thing.
Mhm. I think this subcommittee will be, limited in what we're able to do based on what's in code currently. So we'll just have to, it may be appropriate to have city staff, attorney review what our options are legally under current code. We can deal with that at the subcommittee level.
Okay.
Should be great. We don't need anything more for that, right? Do you have anything else, Nancy?
Thank you.
David?
No report on meetings. I would echo, I guess, thinking ahead to our conversation of boards and commissions, I'd echo Councilmember Elliott's at least the interest in making some changes. For me, I just want to mention that I would like to move off of the county's homeless and affordable housing committee. I've been on that committee for 10 years now. It's been a great experience. I've learned a lot about the subject. I just feel like it's time for another council member to learn about the subject. So when we are putting the chips on the table in the next meeting, trying to trade commissions and board seats, that's one I would like to change. And part of it is that it's the time I've served on the council or the commission. The other part is I do have a fairly regular conflict with my schedule on the chosen meeting date, Friday morning, last Friday of the month, basically. So just put that out there. And I think as we look at reallocation of seats from both Councilmember Lamb's departure and then just in general, and there are some other boards or commissions that I have not served on that I would be willing to. So I'm open to mixing things up.
Councilman Chad?
I currently am not on any boards yet, but definitely we'll be talking with Councilmember Elliott on a few of his that he's looking to switch with. And I'll definitely be looking forward to actually attending some of the meetings as a bystander, just to see what the meetings are about and how they're processed, things like that moving forward. I feel as a council member who's going to be helping with the appointment of members, and we're possibly even looking at making that a standard for them. I feel my role should be similar to that. So that's what I'll be doing going forward.
Great. I have no reports. But I do have a question. Do we know how many applicants we have to interview next meeting?
At this point, we have 5 applicants.
Okay,
And applications close at 5 o'clock on Friday, January 7th.
okay. So last call for applying to be an appointed council person. Are we using the same process and the same questions as our last
So-
time we appointed, or are we going to have options to?
We certainly have options to change things. I think the recommendation was to use the same process unless we had a significantly larger number of applicants. And so the recommendation was to look at the number when it closes, and we can adjust the questions and the process accordingly.
Okay.
I'd like to have some input on the questions.
Yeah, I was mulling over what I think might be a good question to.
Excellent.
to
So
substitute.
I would recommend, if you have specific questions you want to ask, you're welcome to send those to me and I can coordinate those, and we can create a list from there.
Could you just circulate the questions that were used last time that are being considered? And that would help.
That was my intent, to send those out, and if folks wanted to change those, you could send it back through me.
Okay, thank you. If there is nothing further, we are adjourned.
I would just like to point out that your meetings are a lot shorter than Mayor Tab's.
I was tying that we just swore in a new council member. I think it was.
I think it has to do with the thickness of the agenda.
Well,
Just saying.
if you
It's
had any
just-
influence on that, I'm. in
I wouldn't have expected anything less. I want to be clear. Thank you.